And we're live, 7:03, a couple minutes late. Just plugging everything in. You know how we do it. Today we're going to talk about a couple of cool things. I have two videos up I put up recently that I don't think that we've talked about. One is the big block Chevy cylinder head test, where I compared two different sets of airflow research heads, 315s for the big block Chevy and 345s for the big block Chevy. One of them flowed more than 20 CFM more than the other, and it showed no power. We're going to talk about why. I covered that in the video also. Also, we're going to start from the very beginning on head flow and talk about when it helps and then when it doesn't, and then why this particular one didn't. But also on the video that I put up, Ford versus Chevy versus Dodge, the least, I told you guys I was going to do it, the least powerful V8s that I have ever tested. And it's funny, I just love getting all the responses from this kind of stuff, because people tell you, oh yeah, why didn't the Dodge get this, or why didn't you do this, or why didn't you do that? And I'm like, you are totally missing the point of the video. These are engine configurations from other tests that I've run that have nothing to do with each other, that were just selected based on the criteria, the very simple criteria, that these are the least powerful ones that I've run. Lots and lots of people, and this is what I asked in the video, well, what is your like really low dollar V8 thing? There's lots of other better choices, and I even brought up a couple in the video. There's lots of them that would make lots of V8s, smaller displacement, less powerful versions that would make more power than the ones that I tested. You can put 260-inch motors or 250-inch motors on the case of the Ford, 21-inch motors. People are talking about flatheads and going way back, going fully old school on it. So there are certainly a lot more or less powerful versions than the ones that I tested, but these are the ones that I've tested. And so I just gathered together three of them that were the least powerful Chevy and Ford and Dodge that I tested, and these ones that are the ones that I happen to do. So no, I don't know if picking the least powerful one is actually showing favoritism, but then showing the modifications that we did. And I can only talk a little bit about what we did to each one of them, because on each one of them, we ended up making more power. Because that's the thing, when you start out with a two barrel and some sort of large chamber, low compression, poor flowing cylinder heads and a very, very mild camshaft, when you replace those things, obviously good things happen. And good things happen to the Ford, good things happen to the Chevy, and good things happen to the Dodge. Except on the Ford and the Chevy, I think we started out with some sort of forged piston because we were going to put camshaft in it. We didn't have to worry about that so much with the Dodge. The Dodge was a motor that was actually going back in my van, so I had a limited amount of time to do the testing on the engine dyno and get it back in and get it running, because I drove that van. So I had to do all that rather quickly. And so I wasn't doing any kind of dedicated buildup. And I also wasn't doing, which I would have been cool, to have that Dodge 360 out and to do even more elaborate tests. I would have asked Dulcich or somebody to port the heads so that the Edelbrock heads would have been run right. We could have put more camshaft in it. We could have put a piston in it that was somewhere near zero deck, not within 100 or 200 thousandths, like I'm sure that one was. There was a lot more that could have been done. It would have been cool to do that on a Dodge, because I didn't get to spend nearly as much time on that LA version. I'm going to spend more time on the Magnum version, but I didn't get to spend nearly as much time on the LA version as I would have. And thinking back, I would have liked to put together the E58's 1978 Little Red Express version of that motor, and that would have been a perfectly acceptable one to do that with. So that would have been cool. And the Ford was actually an EFI motor. The Chevy was a two-barrel. The Dodge is a two-barrel, at least starting out the way that I started them out. We could have done that with the Ford too. And had we started out with a two-barrel induction system, the power probably would have been less than it was with the factory EFI setup. And then, like I said, if we would have gone with the 260 or 221, any of those versions, it would have been, it had been in the hundreds, or certainly less than where we were, somewhere in the low 200s, or somewhere in the maybe even mid 100s or something. So some of those things just made no power. And the one that I brought up was the 157 horsepower 82, I think. version of that 302, the carbureted one. So obviously that's going to make a whole bunch less power. That's rated 70 or so horsepower less than the one that I tested. So right off the bat, it should be quite a bit. It should be bringing it down below the 200 range anyway. And like I said, there are smaller ones than that. So that was a cool video, and I like the way that all of that stuff turned out. And then the video that I just posted today was on the big block. So we need to talk a little bit about cylinder head flow, because this doesn't just apply to the big block. That's one of the ones that I've tested. I've tested on lots of other engine families as well. But we need to talk about cylinder head flow and what happens when we do testing on a boosted one, particularly a roots blower or a centrifugal blower, where we don't change the blower speed, because the turbo artificially does it. It just changes itself because it's regulated by boost and not speed, where the blower is regulated by speed. So if we take a combination, like we don't look at the test that I put up today, the 496, if we look at like the 454 that I did, where we replaced the stock Gen 6 heads with a set of Brodex heads, which definitely flowed more and made more power. The thing is that they simultaneously had more to offer. They were aluminum, they flowed more, they were a better head design, they had bigger valves and stuff, but they also had a much larger chamber. So it lost some power down low and then came up stronger on top, where the combination, where the cammed Gen 6 motor could actually take advantage of the extra head flow. Had we milled it or had the chamber size been better, the other benefits would have been more pronounced, and it would have flowed more, it would have made more power. So there are instances, obviously, where you can go from, especially a stock head, to some kind of either ported stock head or aftermarket head, where you're going to make a lot more power. And as I showed in the video, we made a lot more power NA, and we made more power under boost. Both of those happened the way that they normally do. And also the other thing, and the important part when we transition to the video that I did today, on the Vortec motor with the Gen 6 motor, when we improved the flow rate of the motor, when we made more power NA by putting better cylinder heads on it, and we also lowered the compression, because that's also going to have an effect on this, is we made more power, but we simultaneously lowered the boost, because we got rid of some of the restriction, the pressure's down, the flow is up, and the power's up. That's what normally happens on a blower application. Fast forward now to, we jump over to the 496. I ran both of the 315 head and the 345 head on the 496. It had that BR300 camshaft. It was very low compression, like 8.5 to 1. We had a single plane on it, a big 950 Holley, more than enough carburetor to feed that combination. Is making around 650 horsepower. Well, if we look at the flow rate of a 315 head, of an Airflow Research 315 head, we see that it makes enough to support 800 horsepower. It flows 386 or 87 CFM. So it's already way more cylinder head than we need for that combination. We're not even taking advantage of what that has to offer. We're not even taking advantage of the big flow numbers in the 700 and 800 lift range. And that is very important, because if we look at the comparison between that 315 head, which we already weren't using, to a 345 head, which we're even more not using, the big gains offered by the bigger head, not surprisingly, are at the higher lift ranges. They're where you would be using them if you were going to try to max out a cylinder head like that. You would be using a 750 or 800 lift camshaft. So you'd be taking advantage of the airflow potential that head has there, because the airflow curve is still rising there. We've got good flow numbers. In the case of the 345 head, we had over 400 CFM. So that's where the gains were. Unfortunately, our little 650 lift cam wasn't taking advantage of those. And neither was our low compression 496 single 4-barrel kind of thing. It just wasn't enough motor to do that. It didn't have the right, it had the wrong camshaft, obviously, but it also had the wrong combination. So our combination couldn't take advantage of that. And then when we did the NA testing, they made the same power. The chamber size was the same, the compression was the same. They both had enough flow to make that power, and they made essentially the same power curve. Fast forward into adding the 871 YN supercharger with the two 750 blower carburetors on it. They may have even been 950s, whatever. We were only making about 7 pounds of boost, less actually than that. but it was around 900 horsepower. And the guys are thinking, oh, well, 900 horsepower, you definitely will be able to take advantage of those. No, because it's not 900 horsepower. It's only 650 horsepower. The 900 part of it comes from the boost. It comes from the extra airflow supplied by the blower. It comes from that positive pressure forcing the stuff in. So the heads are still not really very restricted because they have positive pressure flowing that. And we saw that, but we kind of saw that. Well, we would have saw that had I done the test properly. We did see a gain in power from the bigger head with the blower on it. As it turns out, that was all from a mistake because it shouldn't do that. If it made the same power NA and we add the blower to it, they should make the same power under boost. And I know guys will argue that, no, the bigger head, it'll be able to take advantage of it. It'll come into its own. Maybe at some point, but not at the point where that 871 would ever be. It won't be able to get there for that head to take advantage of it. And certainly not with that camshaft. Not in this world the way that we know it. So the reason that it made more power, as it turns out, was not because the head was bigger and it flowed more, which it did, but because I didn't have the right pulleys on it because the boost was higher. Because so when I was telling you about the head test that we did with the Vortec, and we put the Brodix head on, and it made more power NA, and then when we tested under boost, it made more power and it simultaneously lowered the boost, which is exactly what should happen every time you run a blower. Bob, thank you very much. That's exactly what should happen. If you make it more efficient, like we go from a stock cam to a good cam and it makes more power, we see this on the Vortec, on the LA, on the LS stuff, on the small block 4s, just every motor. So we put a camshaft in it, you make it more efficient, and you do that on a supercharged motor, all of a sudden the boost comes down, the power goes up. That's exactly what normally happens. And that's what would have happened on this combination, but we saw no power gain. So when we add boost to both of them, they should both make the same power. Both of the heads have enough to support, way more than enough to support what we're asking of it. We don't have enough head flow to take advantage of the higher lift stuff where the extra airflow was offered by the bigger head, so we're not even using that. All we have is a change in port volume, essentially. And so the head showed more power because I didn't have the pulley ratios right, and it had about a pound to a pound and a quarter more boost, and it made about 20 more horsepower, which is exactly what you'd expect if we were spinning the blower faster, which is exactly what I was doing. So the mistake was my part, and that's what happened. I realize this stuff, or I find this stuff out when I go back and re-look at it after a period of time. It's just like rereading something that you've written. If you write a story, a book report, if you're young and you're in school, or a novel or a magazine story or whatever, a script, if you read it right after you write it, your brain fills in the problem areas. If there are mistakes, your brain just overlooks those. So you got to go away, set it down. That's why they have copy editors and stuff who look at stuff after you look at it. Not that they're better at their work than you, although I found that to be the case. They are much better at that than I am. But fresh sets of eyes look at that stuff, and then they'll see things that you don't see. The same thing happens if you come back and you review something after a period of time, whatever that time frame is. You look at it as though you're looking at it for the first time. You look at it through fresh eyes. You're not looking at it like your brain is not, I just wrote this stuff, I already know what it says. It's like, oh, what's this? This is really good. If you're egotistical. No, but you look at it and you look at it differently, and then that's when you find stuff. So when I go back and look at this data and I go, oh, look, this cylinder head test, I remember this. This is really cool. We did a cool big block thing. This was awesome. And it made no power. It made no difference. And then I look at the two blower things. And I'm like, wait, but there's a difference. Wait, what's going on? Let's look at the boost curve. The boost curve, if there is a power difference here, the boost curve on the higher horsepower combination should be lower. Oh no, wait, it's higher. That doesn't make any sense. And so now I can go back, because most of the things that I look at in the world are through analytical eyes, and I go, okay, well, that doesn't make sense. So let's go back and look and see. Oh yeah, let's look at pulley ratios. Let's see. Yeah, those are not the same. That has more boost. It has more power. Those things naturally go together. It's railroad tracks. You know, it was all the evidence was there. It's just that I had already decided what the outcome was, and it wasn't the actual outcome. So that's why you go back and look and you redo it and provide more information. And all of that is good. But that's what normally happens. So if you increase the airflow with a blower, centrifugal, positive displacement, twin screw, anything that's mechanically driven and is not changing, When you do that and you improve the airflow of your combination, the boost pressure will come down. It won't on a turbo, because the turbo says you have it set up so that it's going to make 10 pounds no matter what. What will happen is you'll just make more power, because the turbo will speed up to make it make 10 pounds now with this improved airflow that it finds, hey, look, this is a lot easier. I'm going to flow a lot more air. I'm going to spin a lot faster to make sure that I fill this and produce 10 pounds. The blower doesn't do that. So that's what all that's about. So let's see what you guys got going on. Is there a formula for determining how much theoretical power can be made for X fuel versus Y airflow? Well, it would depend on two things. One, your brake specific fuel consumption, or your brake specific air consumption. Both of those can be different. Some combinations can make a lot more power with a given amount of airflow, and also some combinations can make a lot more power with a given amount of fuel flow. And a lot of times for drag racing, for top fuel, they don't care about that. They don't care about how much fuel they go through. In fact, they're trying to put more fuel in, because the more fuel that they put in, the more oxygen molecules they have, because it's nitromethane, the more power that they make. So if they could put more fuel in, they would. They put it into the point of, if it doesn't light off, then it's going to hydrolock. That's how much fuel they use. They don't really care about that. They're trying to make as much power as they can. On an endurance race application or a NASCAR application, they're trying to make power, but they're also trying to make power as efficiently as they can with the least amount of fuel used, especially for endurance racing like Le Mans cars and stuff, where you're racing for 24 hours. Because if you can get it also to get better gas mileage, and that's the problem, there's the trade-off. Is like, okay, we can run this a little bit leaner, but then it doesn't have the reliability because it's going to break. It's not really that simple, but that, you see what I'm talking about, because that becomes the problem. Is that, yeah, can we make this power at, because if we can make this power and not run at, if it's a naturally aspirated motor, if we don't have to run it at 12.2, if we can run it at 13.2 or 14.2 and still make that power and still have it be safe, we're going to do that. And that's one of the things that they strive to do. Your opinion on engines that are boosted yet retain reliability. You want my opinion on that? The factory has already shown that boosted engines, and even in racing in forms like Le Mans and stuff, they've already shown that boosted engines can be ultra reliable. The biggest thing is, can a blower be reliable? Yes, they can. Look at all the OEM blower applications. I really like to upgrade my 97 LT1 heads to some AFR 195s. Those 305 size valves aren't doing a thing for my V1S. Any favors? I don't know what you mean by that. They're a common equation Superfly uses. Yuri, you can do, you first have to decide. So his comment was, so I figured all that you said on my build, 462 valve before Vortex, choose the best setup possible NA, and then turn the setup to boost. So you add the supercharger. Yes and no, because the other thing that happens is, like, if we look at a different combination, we look at an LS. I don't tell people that anymore. I don't tell them make the thing as efficient of an NA motor as you can, because I need to know what your power level is. Like, how much power do you want to make? So like in an LS, if you have the stock head, you put springs in it, put a cam in it, put a turbo on it, you can make 1,000 horsepower. You can make more than that. So for most guys, that seems to cover 95% of everything that everybody would do. There are guys making more than that and racing it, and you can do that. On a 462 valve, again, you have to decide, what is your power level. If your power level is, I want to make 450 horsepower, then you don't have to make it as efficient of an NA motor as you can. You might be able to just add boost to it. If you want to make way more than that, then you're going to have to start thinking about, porting those heads, because those heads are not great. They're better than a 5-liter Ford head, but they're not as good as an LS head. You're going to have to think about porting the head to get them to flow. Camshafts obviously will help. And then once you do that and you add boost to it, then really good things are happening. I have videos up to show, you know, kind of where we are. 600 and 700 horsepower for 2-valve stuff is not hard. Mark, so you're a Chevy inline 6-cylinder guy for a while? Have you ever dealt with a boat engine? I have not. Large around 3.7 liter inline four with a 460 head. I didn't know it was called a 470. I'm familiar with the 3.7 with the Ford head on it. Mahovitz was going to do one of those for a while. I remember starting on alcohol and switching over nitro back in the day. It was extremely uncomfortable being more close to the car. It really is. It's too much. But everyone should go see that. I was telling my kids that because we drove out to the beach the other day. We went to Dillon Beach so we could take our dogs there. And we got to drive by Sears Point to get there. And so I was telling them, I think that there's a Top Fuel thing coming up, and I think everyone should see a Top Fuel car run once in their life. You should be close to that, and you should see how it feels. And I haven't seen one since, I'm sure I haven't seen one since the 80s, probably. Thinking it was the 80s. Yeah, probably the late 80s. So maybe it's time I saw another one. So it's next weekend, Dan? Funny story about 2.5 non-common blocks. Rods and pistons are turbo rods and pistons, but the ring gap is set up for NA. Otherwise, I could drop my DC V&M blower on my Caravelle. Nice. Yeah, we were just out there. I was regaling them of stories of racing at Sears Point. I don't think I've been there since when was the last time I raced there? 2000? 2001? Yeah, starting line launch. Those are the kind of motors that you hate. Like I don't like when they do that on the engine dyno too. if you walk in there to get a wrench or whatever, and somebody wants to throttle the motor with open headers, it's not fun. On a Top Fuel, it's like it's unsafe. Yeah, Dan, I think that's good. I think everyone should go see a Top Fuel car. I would love to go watch, and I've seen Indy races because we were a support series when I was running World Challenge, and also when I was doing Bridgestone. So we got to be at the Long Beach Grand Prix because we got to race there. So I got to see Indy cars. So you got to see that. Formula One race would be awesome also, but also Bonneville and Top Fuel, I think people have to see. Would like to see a test, complete stock 429 Super Cobra Jet. If you have one, I would love to test it. I was going to try to build one, but I have had no luck finding even a set of 429 Super Cobra Jet heads that I could just try. Ooh, Daniel, Sears Point on a bike. I've never tried that. Bike guys are awesome. I did love, I got to drive Sears Point in the rain in my Del Sol when I was doing US touring car, when we won the championship in that car. One of the races was at Sears Point and in the rain, and it was like diabolical coming onto the drag strip portion. There was 10 cars spun out there. Pontiac G8, I want to hit 600 wheel horsepower. What's better, keep it NA or turbo blower? Cost is a big factor as well. If you want to make 600 wheel horsepower and you want to do it NA, that's going to be pretty expensive. A turbo is going to cost you a whole bunch less than that. So they really use they use the head gaskets, the thickness to change the tune. They're that precise. Fortunately, and Thunderjet is close enough. That a Thunderjet's not what a Super Cobra jet is. A Boss 429. Yeah, that's the. I think Dan's going to throw in that I should do a budget Boss 429 build. Yeah, Dallas, if you've got one that we can run on the dyno, we'll just run it stock. That would be awesome. .52 Magnum, 318, 60 cc heads, 10.3 compression, blowers or superchargers. Well, both those are the same thing. Blowers and superchargers are the same thing. Do you have any data on a side mount Whipple supercharger on a 6-liter? I don't know. I've seen that. I've seen that on. They did it on some of the big blocks, I remember, but I've not seen one on a 6-liter. But a side mount is not going to be any different. There's going to be some length of charge tube, unless they're blowing. Are they blowing it through an intercooler also? Because that would be cool. I know someone that has a 429 Super Cobra jet and a 74 dually flatbed. That's pretty cool. Cameron, how is a gun going to help stop somebody from flipping over? Stock cam, everything but carb and distributor. That's okay. We can put a stock carburetor on it. Well, I didn't even run stock carburetors on all the other motors that I did. We ran 750 Hollies. I'm sure that Westech might even have a 780. Is it timing that takes out a head gasket or boost numbers? Yes, it's both of those. I wish you had that 400 Pontiac longer to boost and do what you do. Aaron, I have another one and a 350, so that won't be a problem. We will put boost on one or both of those. Centrifugal versus a screw blower. It depends on what you want. I've shown you, I have lots of videos up. A centrifugal has a rising boost curve, so that's what you want. That's a centrifugal is a good way to go. A screw blower is going to have more immediate boost, and it works very well. Sometimes packaging the screw blower, depending on what kind of engine family it is and what application it is, sometimes it's hard to get a kit for that. Sniper, what's up? Get away. I'd like to see a 69 429 Super Cobra jet run against a 1970 460 Police Interceptor. What's the highest stroker you can take a 5.3 to? Local machine shops don't know. We do 383s from those. There are guys that say that they take them out to 4 inches, but you would definitely want to measure that. Richard, have you ever tested nitro spiking? I don't know what that is, so probably not. I haven't run nitromethane in anything. Ford only installed 460s and Lincolns in 1970, and they were high compression ones too. It's worth adding 1.6 Scorpion roller rockers to GT40 heads. Yes. And you should think about, if you're getting rockers anyway, and depending on what your cam is, you should think about 1.7s. So Randall, you guys did some match racing? That's cool. All our Ford cars had 429s. I know Mark Sanchez is a really big fan of the 429s. Personally, if I was going to pick between that and a 460, I would pick a 460, except for the Super Cobra Jet, only because they're so expensive. But a 429 just it's like a 427 Chevy versus a 454. The 427 makes less power, unless you're talking about an LA8 or a ZL1 or something, because it's a different combination. But if the two engines have the same stuff in them, the bigger motor makes more power. To purchase a new blow-through carburetor for small block Fords, in your opinion, what's the best one? I've only ever tested two. We run the CSU carburetor a lot, and that always works good. Or the Quick Fuel, I think, has them too. Looking for a junkyard build with some airflow resource heads and a tunnel ram. That's a good combination. Stock Mercury Grand Marquis 4.6 liter single cam. Headers will definitely help. Maybe I should just chrome the dual exhaust for a better look. Change the mufflers and it will sound different. Could sound throaty. Spiking regular gas, race gas E85 with small amounts of nitro, like dumping a gallon, 15 gallons or something like that. I don't think nitromethane works very well and doesn't mix very well with regular gasoline. With the E85, it might be more homogeneous because they normally would do it with alcohol or some alcohol-based fuel. Mark, thank you for showing up. What do you think of needle bearings and camshafts? I don't ever run them, so maybe I'm not at that level. I've heard people sleeving 5.3s and eating into water jackets to get higher cubic inches, but just don't know how reliable. Well, if you're talking about a sleeved motor, that's a whole different thing. And if you sleeve we have made, and you can do this with a 5.3 like an L33 or an LC9. We've sleeved aluminum blocks, LS1 or LS6. You could do this with a 5.3 blocks also. Then you can make them really big, because if you sleeve them, you can have a long sleeve. You could have a bigger bore because the sleeve is pretty thick. So we've made 468s out of those. But then you're talking about a whole different block. Stream, I would pick the head size based on the power output and not the displacement. If it's a 400 small block and you're only trying to make 400 horsepower, obviously you don't need a 225 head. If it's a 400 small block and you're trying to make 600 or more horsepower, then I would pick a 225 head. My microphone is no good. It looks like it's all good. Is it getting fan wash? The fan is running. I can turn it off though. You can see if that's better. How's that? Is that better? It's my scary voice. That's what I use when I call the dogs. Come here. Yeah, it doesn't mix. Nitromethane doesn't mix well with gasoline. Have you done a tall deck 366? I have not. A 366 big block? I have not. Or a 427. Have not done marine engines specifically. I mean, we've done the blown big blocks and stuff are all kind of boat motors, but and I did one. I was putting one together for a boat that I had that was sitting in my driveway for a really long time. I ended up just giving it away. As a matter of fact, I didn't even give it away. I think it's sitting out at the ranch. For a daily driver, it would be better to LS swap my 97 Ranger or 5-liter swap, which would be cheaper. I would think that the 5-liter swap would be cheaper because the Ranger was it ever set up to have a V8 in it? Is the Ranger the same as the Explorer chassis? Yeah, it's actually not that. It's not that hot in here right now. I like Super Duty big block Ford, but you can't beat a 702 GMC. Any chance you'll start playing with import motors? I already have Honda K series up, and I've written a bunch of books on Hondas already, on the K series and the B series and the D series. I've run them NA. Where were you last night? We were talking about the TWM individual runner stack injection, moving the injector placement on a B series Honda. I've run lots of B series stuff. I've got a Honda that was for a long time the world's fastest Honda Civic. If you look at those trophies back there, many of them are with that Honda. And I wrote a book on K series. I'm doing a big bang on the K series. So yeah, I'm all Honda. I'm all in. From experience, do you find some supercharger manufacturers preferable, or is it pretty much you get what you pay for? I don't really understand the question. If you want to get a supercharger, stop thinking about the quality of the supercharger. All of the guys have good stuff. Vortec has good stuff. ProCharger has good stuff. Torqstorm has good stuff. Instead, think about what size you want, what power output do you want, and then pick the supercharger that will do that. All the other stuff, it all bolts on pretty well, and all the pieces work. Let's see. I think your mic is now picking up from the fan of the computer. What? Wait, my fan's still going. I thought that I turned you off. It's still going. I turned it off. There we go. How's that? The mic should be better now. Let's see. I fully ported in gasket match stock iron small block Chevy heads on a 400 small block Chevy with twin GT485. Is it capable of 600 horsepower? Yes. With boost, it's capable of easily of doing that. In fact, you should be able to make 600 horsepower with a 400 and those heads in a cam at less than 10 pounds of boost. In my humble opinion, porting the heads decreases boost pressure but increases horsepower at the same time. Force induction is aptly named. Not just how many PSI, but how much you can flow. Yeah, we just covered all that a little while ago. Never messed with a bigger cubic inch 6-cylinder. 292, I think, is the biggest 6-cylinder that I've run. With a thumper style cam, kill power under roots blower versus a tight LSA. Doesn't the thumper cam has a tight LSA, right? If it makes good power NA, it will work with a blower. Best budget build, big block Chevy, would you recommend 500 to 600 NA, junkyard 454 with the FR heads on a cam? Eric, the problem you're going to run into, you won't make 600 NA. The problem you'll run into, you have to change the piston because you don't have enough piston to valve clearance, or you could cut the piston and notch it to give yourself enough piston to valve clearance. You can't put enough camshaft in it, especially with a different head that has a bigger valve in it than a stock head. An Airflow Research is an excellent choice. They make really good heads, like a 265 head works really good. But to put enough camshaft in it to take advantage of that head, the piston's in the way, and you need more piston to valve clearance. So you have to either cut a valve relief in the piston or change the piston. Dan, we hurt your feelings because we started without you. 7 o'clock, man. You got to be here. Trophy 4-cylinder is bigger than the Ford Flathead. Tony, do you agree with Kenny Bell's claim that you don't need headers on 03 Cobras and GT500s with their blower? I always thought the motor was an air pump, get it in and out efficiently. Headers definitely help. Jim has never liked headers because he doesn't like them to leak. And when he gives you a kit that has an emissions legal deal, that has a program and a tune in it, and you change it and your headers leak, then you have problems. So that's really why he doesn't like headers. Every time I've tested headers on any motor, it makes more power. When you test them on really stock motors, sometimes not a great deal, but the headers definitely help. Dune cam for 6,000 RPM and maybe 10 pounds of boost. AFR 385 CNC heads. Do you think 1,400 horsepower? I don't know what your previous question was. I don't know what you're using to make that 1,400 horsepower. A pair of marine offshore 705 cubic inch super tall deck big blocks with Whipple. Yeah, if the blowers will support that power, then you can make that power. I ran an 855 cubic inch inline 6-cylinder for a while. That probably would be torquey, right? Richard, you said if you remembered your poster twin turbo with a supercharger video similar to the Manhattan Project. Oh, on the 03 Cobra? I thought that was up already. Let me go see here. I'm going to check for you. YouTube. See if I can find that. I'm going to playlists, and then I'm going to modular Ford turbo blower stuff, wherever that is. Small block Ford, modular Ford turbo blower. No, I don't want to play that list. I just want to look at it. Okay, let's take a look at it and see. Boost panel. I'm not sure I have that because I don't remember if I still have the dyno data because that was on the chassis dyno with the guys at HP Performance. So I don't know if I have that dyno data. Vortec, custom intakes. Turbo blowers, nitrous. No, it is not up there. So that's probably why I probably don't have the dyno data anymore from the guys at HP Performance. It was done on a dyno jet. Why are boost cams built on wide lobe separations when the 108s make more power? I think that they're trying to. I would, if I was building it, I would make it so that the cam idles better. And you usually can make more than enough power and still have the thing work. And a lot of guys are worried about overlap. I don't know why if you're trying to make power, but a lot of guys are worried about overlap. And I would argue that when they're talking about this, that, oh, this one has more back pressure. Yeah, it has more back pressure. It has more back pressure because it's making more power. But that's not the way that they look at it. Narrower, I'm sure you meant LSA, can break rockers with high boost when you try to open exhaust valve too early. that's the story that Brian was telling me about top fuel guys, is that's the kind of limit. Small block Chevy 357 full roller GT45 intercooled, about to start first time after your stream ends. Break. You can break in the rings either way. You should do it even if you have the turbo on it. You should break the rings in out of boost. You shouldn't be at wide open throttle with maximum boost. In fact, you should wire the wastegate open to drive it around and not be in any boost at all. I used to drive my motors around when we rebuilt it. I drive it for 500 miles before I go to wide open throttle. How many guys can do that? Nobody here, I'm sure. Building a 331 AFR 185 SC trim 50 stock block. Is there an advantage or benefits to using non-HO firing order camshafts? No, I don't think that there is. Has anybody tried the Speedmaster 429, 460 heads? I think that I have, but I think that they were done by somebody, like maybe Bryce or somebody at Dr. J's way back. You have wider lobe separation angle because they don't want you to blow through too much mixture. If you have a tighter LSA, then you blow through more mixture and get lower chamber pressure. So how does a tighter LSA make more torque if it doesn't have more chamber pressure? It doesn't have more cylinder pressure. What's the best lift for a high RPM screamer? You shouldn't be looking at lift. The lift should be the second thing that you look at. You should be looking at RPM, but even, I mean, you should be looking at duration to make the thing want to make power up there. You should also be looking at lobe stability, and that's going to tie in to some extent lift, but lobe stability should be your thing if you want to make it, if you want to have safely have lots of RPM. I'd like to see some tests with tight versus wide LSA boosted. There's lots of camshafts up there that have already shown that. No 540 yet, but have big block Chevy cross ram and you have a cross ram on the big block? That's cool. 240-150 blow through carb rate for dyno fun with a torque storm twin setup. That would be good. Aaron, did you put boost to your, didn't you have a Dodge that you were doing boost on? A 318? Do you have any specs on a stock 428 Super Cobra Jet cam? Only what I would find on the internet. Tony, I from memory, we ran 6 or 7 pounds of boost from the turbos into the blower. The blower was at 11 pounds, and we ended up with 21 or 22 total in the motor. But the blower helped with turbo response, although the turbos that we were using were already fairly responsive because they were part of the kit. And it was cool. It's a gee whiz thing. So if you want to open the hood and everybody say, wow, that's okay. Honestly, if you just put turbos on it and get the blower out of the way, it will make more power. Richard, when are we going to see more from the 360 Magnum? I need to go down there and do that. Scott, unless you buy from Sunoco or somebody, it probably won't ever be exactly 85. And honestly, I don't ever even check my E85. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's E85 or E70 or E22. It's cold and it's higher octane and it makes more power. So Edelbrock heads on Summit for the FE. Are they in stock? Tony, high ports versus TFSRs. Do I have that? I might not have up part 4 of the big head test for the 5-liter. I guess I need to get that up there because we tested all those. And the TFSR heads, the ported versions of those made the most power. I think some guys like the high ports, and I think that that's an inline valve head, so that's better for a lot of people. But by the time you're putting that head on, and because those are the first heads I had on my Mustang, and they work good, again, I didn't have enough motor to take advantage of what, and I just bolted them on. They were just as cast. They were back when Kaufman did the stuff with those guys. But the TFS R heads always made really good power. Is a truck Norris cam compatible with a board and stroked 364 Gen 453 with 9.5 compression? So what did you stroke it with to get 364? But the answer is yes. That cam will work in any LS. Okay, Bill. So they had stuff in stock. That's good. Should I run boost in my 400 small block? Goals 500 horsepower, NA, and 1 add boost. The only thing is my pistons are hypertectic. How much power until they break? I don't know. I'd be more concerned with ring gap in it than the pistons. If you don't detonate it, they'll last a long time. Yeah, Tony, the guys at MMR know if you just run turbos and get the blower out of the way. And like I said, it's more of a gee whiz thing that the blower is there. The other thing is there's an argument that can be made if you put really big turbos on it and you're trying to get them to spool up with an NA motor, it's not going to spool up as well as if you had a supercharged motor, because it's going to essentially make more NA power. I know it's supercharged, but it's going to make, instead of 300 horsepower, let's say it makes 450 horsepower. So a 450 horsepower motor is going to spool up the big turbos quicker than a 300 horsepower motor. So there's something to be said for that. But then it's just going to be in the way. So if you're sizing your turbos to do 1,000 horsepower or less, just don't have the blower there. Do block girdles work? Yeah, they'll help the mains from moving around, but that's not really the weak link in the block. They're not going to stop the block from splitting if the block is going to split, because it's going to go in the other direction. Yeah, pump feel varies a lot. The E85 stuff does, but again, I'm never. We tune it on the dyno using an air fuel meter. So whatever it needs to be, and it tells us what it likes. Jerry, I have a 400 small block, 509 block. They say I can only make 650 horsepower till the block cracks. They said that about a lot of stuff. Tony, a 3-liter Whipple is a decent sized blower. It's much better than the factory blower was on that 03 Cobra. Obviously, it'll make a lot more power than that. But 276s, depending on what 76s they are, that can be anywhere from, I don't know, 1,400 to 2,000. I don't know if you want to make that much. Jerry, C16 is also good. That's normally what we run, not C16, but something like that, C16 or 118 or something of Rocket brand stuff, which we used back in the day on the Big Bang stuff. I didn't ever use E85. I needed the Big Bang stuff. Jessel belt drive or Pete Jackson gear drive on a small block Chevy. I don't. Do you like the gear drive noise? Otherwise, there'd be no reason to use that. Oh, so you have 76 millimeter precisions. Those are big turbos then. 4-inch K1 crank with 12cc dish pistons. My tuner's not able to figure it out. It keeps hiccuping, surging during different load and temperature ranges. Any ideas? Is it a carburetor? Is it EFI? What is it? Tony, and are you going to be varying it by that much? I mean, E30 would be pretty rare. Say no to the drive gears. Yeah, Pete Jackson stuff is like if you put a fake blower on there and then you put a Pete Jackson on there because you want the blower noise. I can see that. Does it, Aaron? It sounds like are they trying to tune around some sort of mechanical problem? Does it have a sticking valve, or is a rocker loose, or is a spring broke, or does it have a vacuum leak? Does it have a head gasket that's bad? I mean, does it have something? Because you obviously won't be able to tune around that. My car has an O2 sensor and air fuel gauge. It's great. What is the sweet spot for E85? We run it on the same air fuel ratio as we do it on the gas scale. So we run it at 11.5 to 1 on under boost. Weren't guys making 1,000 horsepower and 5-liter Mustangs in the 10.5 class years ago? I don't know. I don't know what the class is. I'm almost porting my own cast iron heads. Is it worth the work to also polish the bowl? Yeah, if you're boosting it, then polishing the bowl is a good idea. And Tony, thanks for the help, man. Yeah, Dan, I agree. We don't worry about it going below more than 50%. And I think it would probably usually be to the high side of that. But even in the tests that I've seen, I haven't done it, but in the tests that I've seen, even at 50 or 55%, it still offers 95% of the gains that E85 does. So I think that it's a big step up from pump gas. I like non-interference engines. Those are convenient for when you break stuff. If you break a belt or a chain. Yeah, Scott, that's another thing. Injectors or coil or anything. If it's a mechanical or electrical problem that's not related to the tune, you just can't tune around it. Mr. Cobb, what's going on? Yeah, that's the gear drives will transmit the harmonics, and then the belt won't, because it'll actually soak that up. But for most guys that are driving around, that's at least the ones I've seen gear drives on, that's not really a concern. They weren't, the ones that I saw just weren't making a lot of power. How do you deal with corrosion and carbs? We normally run, when we run E85 on something, it's on the dyno, it's kind of mandatory then to flush it with 91 or some kind of pump gas. Yeah, the Honda stuff is interference, and I think that the Pinto engine was a non-interference motor, if I remember right. But I remember on the B16 that we swapped into a 91, 90, a 90, yeah, 90 Integra, I think. I had the great idea of taking the 1.8 liter non-VTEC motor out and putting a B16 in, but I retained the non-VTEC transmission because I wanted to have, better fuel mileage. Man, it was terrible. And then the cam belt broke and ruined our day, bent some valves. Should I home port my 542 valve lightning heads? Porting the stock heads is definitely going to help. Yeah, Scott, none of us want to hear that we have a vacuum leak, but when Eric or Ish are in the room and we're talking about tuning, it's always like, okay, that's why a lot of times on a lot of these motors, we'll just run it with a carburetor, because we put a carburetor on there, put a distributor in it and run it. Or like with the LS, you just put the MSD thing on there and put a carburetor on there, run it, go, okay, look, it doesn't leak. All the holes are there. They're all making temperature. We don't even really care what kind of power it makes. Everything is there and it's working. It's all doing what it's supposed to do. So now we take that off, put the fuel injection on, and then if there's a problem, then we know that it's not something that's mechanical. But if we put the carburetor on and then it backfires and misses, and we go, oh, okay, well, there's something going on. The push rod length is too long. There's a coil bad or whatever the deal was, and then we solve that problem. Sean, if your goal is 500 horsepower and you shouldn't worry about any kind of aftermarket block. You should just go to the wrecking yard and get a 5.3 and put a cam in it. And well, for 500, you need a cam and heads. If you get a 6-liter, it would be even better, but you don't need a custom block for 500 horsepower. Bill, have a good night. 2 more minutes. It's Saturday night, man. Another Saturday night. It's EFI, no mechanical issues. 364 just had a I'm sure 212, 218 cam, 112 LSA. That should be that's a tiny little cam. That should work really well. Aaron, did you do a cranking compression test on the thing? Scott's out. Take care, everybody. Uh-oh, Daniel. The latest print copy of Hot Rod Magazine says it has an article that says Pontiac fans should take note that around 600 horsepower, the blocks develop a tendency to crack down the valley. That's not good. 148 PSI cranking, that should be okay then. Yes, Bill, sometimes diagnosing problems is the hard part. I mean, usually of it being any kind of mechanic, that's the thing. If you can't figure out what the deal is, then like changing a tie rod, for instance, that's a pretty simple procedure. But if you don't determine that the tie rod is the thing that's bad and making your tire get all wiggly, that's not good. Vince, what's up? Quiet, I'm watching with my wife Saturday. Somebody shot at me. Nice. I'm going to go have one of those. Thank you. What would be better, 383 LS out of a 5.7 or 6-liter? I like the 6-liter. And actually, if you were thinking about stroking the 5.7, why not put that 4-inch stroke in the 6-liter and make a 408? Find out if it's true on the Pontiac. We're going to. I'm going to make that kind of power. Aaron, can you put a carburetor on it and a distributor on it and see if it works? Just start it up. Vince, tell her I said hello. If I only, Small block Chevys don't like much more than 600 in endurance racing. See, that's good. That's what you want. You want her to have a shot. It's date night. I've never tested a Ford flathead. 225 slant 6. I have one of those coming up. Have you ever had a problem with 4-inch stroke pulling out the bottom of the bore? 4-inch is kind of the limit that we go to. A lot of guys go to 4-100 or 4-125, and that definitely pulls the piston out. Summit has pistons that are designed for these strokers that I think have a shorter skirt or something, and they're supposed to help with that. Do any of the cars use the same T5 bell housing as the SN95? Is that bell housing different than the HO? Do you think 600 would be possible out of a stock bottom end 5.7? It would, if it's a stock bottom end 5.7 LS1, 600 would be possible with boost, but 600 NA and 600 flywheel NA might be possible, but it's going to be a really kind of ragged combination. I think we got close to that with the tunnel ram and carburetors and a big cam and really good heads and stuff on a 5.7. Have Tony build your slant 6. I think I'm hard pass on that. Oh, the SN95 is different. Cosmic, if you're looking for a cam for your Vortec engine, you should stay hydraulic roller. One more minute. 1 minute left. Can you hear me? Because I'm whispering. Whisper mode. Oh, scrolling all the way back. I always lose out at what's happening at the beginning. Oh, it won't even let me go all the way back. An N41 cam, that's Anderson. Man, why won't it let it go all the way back to the beginning? I want to start at the beginning and look and see what's going on, see what people are saying about me. Because I'm busy talking, so people are talking smack. Can you put an IR intake on a slant 6? Yes, you could. I don't know who makes one, but we could. Yes, it is definitely time for frosty cold beverage. Stethoscope for vacuum leaks, yeah. Big black Chevy 366 has 4 rings. That's right. Will either use be a performance issue? No, it won't be, because we won't make very much power with that. Troll, is the lifter bore the same on a Cleveland as it is on a small block? I doubt that. If they are, I doubt that the oiling would be the same. Dallas, let me know if you want me to come get that 429. I'd like to run that. I want to see the stacks coming out of the hood at an angle. That would be cool, though. What I could do, Super Richie style, is I could make a really inexpensive stack setup for a slant 6 and not put any blades in it, and just put a plate over the top of it with small holes drilled in it, so that we could start it and idle it. And then we could just take the plate off and have it go to wide open throttle, and see what happens. That way you don't have to machine it for blades or all that stuff. Oh, there's a Weber manifold available for it? That would be easy then. Daryl, yours will be the last question. I've never seen a 3/4 of a 350 or a 348, a 261, but a 350 and a 348 obviously are different engine families. If one of those is a small block and one of them is a W motor. So Dean, all of those people have Weber manifolds? Lifter is the same on Fords from small blocks to the 385 series. Okay. Webers would be cool. Those are big money though. Holly Hiram for the slant 6. I'll tell you what, the one I'm looking forward to is that Trophy 4, because I can run all kinds of weird Pontiac intake manifolds on that. And the thing is with the slant 6 is it would be nice to have all of the runners be the same, and it would also be nice to have all of the runners, get the same amount of fuel and be the same length and produce the same amount of power and all that. That would be better. So now tonight I need to go down the rabbit hole on the slant 6. Right? Right. Okay, guys, Saturday night, you guys need to all go somewhere and do something at Saturday night. Go be away from your computer. Go out and exercise. Not on Saturday night. Go do something fun. I'm trying to figure out what's going on here at my desk. Ah, there we go. I figured it out. Winning. Thank you guys all for showing up. Hope you guys have a good Saturday, and I will see you guys all tomorrow. Make sure if you have not, go check out the video they did on the big block and also the one on the least powerful V8s. And, like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, do all that stuff, and make comments. Thanks, guys. I will see you later. And boom.